to Murder at the Round Table. I'm Ipsha, and today's episode is a lot. Um, it mainly includes stalking, harassment, and so much more. Without further delay, I'm just going to get started. And of course, joining me in all of this, it's Raf. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. It's a nice slow morning.
Yeah, well, it's gonna build up.
Yeah,
um,
I'm okay. I'm excited.
all right. So, the case that I'm going to share with you today is called, or I'm calling it, The Mysterious Death of Cindy James.
Okay.
Do you know about this case? It's coming from BC.
No, I do not.
Okay, well, long story short, she passes away or is killed or has died in a very mysterious circumstance. I'll tell you about it, but before that, my sources are unsolvedmysteries.com, Lost and Found
Mm-hmm.
blogs, Scary Interesting YouTube channel, and Case File podcast. And I also used Reddit. So, my first time hearing about this case was from Scary Interesting, and it is very neutral in terms of shifting blames and stuff. It stays very neutral. However, compared to Case File, it is very like the skull, the bones, very basic. Just the structure of the case and what it is. Case File
Okay.
podcast, I learned through Reddit, and it is heavier on the blame part, but it does have a lot of the meat that that we like here. So
Mm-hmm.
though that's my reason for using those two. And Reddit I wanted to use because I wanted to see what theories were out there. But
Okay.
because now that I had a second podcast to listen to, I used Reddit to learn a lot of the opinions of other people, which I may or may not use. But every time I use Reddit, I'm gonna justify my use for using it or not using it. Um, so hopefully that clears things up. So the people listening probably know this is a two, actually three-parter. I was telling Raf. So for today, we're going to talk about Sydney's early life to when the problems in her life escalate. The second boat, we're going to be talking about up until the point she goes missing or she dies. And the third part, we're going to talk about there was an inquest where they had a jury determine what they thought happened to her. There was a lot of people, officers, friends, family that was interviewed, and we'll listen to a lot of that in the third part. But at the end of each part, Raf, I really want to know what your thoughts are and what
Okay.
theories you have after each part. So that's why I kind of broke it into small sections, or else each episode would have been like 2 hours long.
So, question on today's. So, you were saying part one is covering the early life.
Early life to adult life, and we see a little bit of the problems happening already.
Okay. So, would it make sense for me to give a theory at the end of part two then? Because the
No,
crime itself wouldn't have happened? Or.
it some of it has happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'll understand. And honestly, Raf,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much information even in this part. I kind of like
Yeah.
sectioned it into bits, and after every little section, I left room for you to tell me your opinion.
All right. Sounds good.
But in the middle, if
Mhm.
you're like, hang on there, I have something to say, feel free to fill in. Because, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Ready, steady.
So, we're going to start on June 8th, 1989. The body of Sydney James, who I will call Sydney from here on, was found in Vancouver, BC, near an abandoned and heavily graffitied house. She was found strangled, and her hands and feet were tied behind her back, so she was pretty much hogtied. It was later
Hmm.
discovered that at the time of her death, Cindy was extremely drugged, Even with all of this, the RCMP fully and confidently believed that Cindy's death was either suicide or she had staged it herself, and
I'm
things
s-
went a little too far.
I'm sorry. Suicide, but she was hogtied.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right. So, what is more bizarre about this case? Starting from 1982 up until when she died in 1989. So that's about 7 years or 6.5 years. Cindy had made about 100 calls to the police about being harassed, threatened, and attacked, but no one was
Mhm.
ever caught, which is why she was found dead or killed at some point, or who knows what happened. So you kind of shared your thoughts already. Do you have any more thoughts after all of that?
That's pretty much doubling down on what I just said. You're telling
Yeah.
me 6.5 years of saying, "Hey, there's somebody coming after me," and then she's found dead, and it's suicide. Like,
Okay,
okay,
so
all right.
I'm just going to continue on with her early life. Cindy James was born Cynthia Elizabeth Hack on June 12th, 1944, to parents Otto and Tilly Hack in Oliver, BC. She would be one of six kids in the family, with three older brothers and three younger sisters. Cindy's father, Otto Hack, was a member of the Canadian Air Force, so this meant that they moved around a bit. But during
Yep.
Cindy's childhood, they moved from BC to Ottawa.
Hmm.
Some things that I found out after my initial draft of this case is that Cindy's father was very stern and disciplined the kids through punishment. Through her childhood, Cindy became afraid of the basement and dark spaces because one of the punishments Cindy and her siblings received as kids was when they misbehaved was they had to eat alone in a dark basement. And then the other thing that I found out was Cindy was sexually assaulted by one of her brothers as a child.
Jesus.
And
Okay.
I thought these were important to point out, and you'll find out why later. Um,
Hmm.
but for now, I just want to point out that Cindy did have a lot of childhood trauma, and given the time period, she never got to seek therapy or overcome this trauma. So she's carrying all this trauma into adulthood.
I
So,
see.
fast forward to early adulthood. At some point in 1962, Otto, he got transferred to France, and the family also moved there, except for Cindy. Cindy went back to Vancouver to finish nursing school. And during her breaks and holidays, she would go out to France to see her family and siblings. But during the school period, Cindy communicated with her family through writing letters. So, a little bit about the letters. Cindy in these letters would write about how she's doing and whatnot, as people do. And at some point, she started to mention that she was dating a mysterious man. This
Hmm.
man was truly mysterious because she never really told her family who this man was, what he did, what his name was, how they met, or anything. He was just a guy. And basically, shortly after mentioning that they were dating, Cindy wrote that she is to be engaged to this man and they would get married later in that year.
What? Okay.
So, kind of like that, no one really knew this man, so her parents were kind of like, what's going on? Um,
Hmm.
and they weren't like very comfortable with that. So, moving along, however, not a long time after she first mentioned about this mysterious man, um,
Hmm.
she wrote back to her family saying that things have ended with this mysterious person because he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Now, since the family never met this person or even seen a picture of this guy, they actually didn't believe Cindy's stories of dating a guy at all, and they didn't believe the engagement part or the part where the guy got terminal cancer. So
Yeah.
they kind of believed it was all fake, and they also thought, quote, it was a fragment of Cindy's imagination, end quote. Do you have any thoughts, or are you okay for me to continue?
Uh, we did know somebody who would make up people that they were seeing. So like, it's not such a crazy thing to think like, oh, I haven't seen this person, so they probably haven't, they're probably not seeing anyone, right? For whatever reason, they feel the need to make it up.
Well, if this was any other circumstance, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
But what happens to Cindy afterwards is where a lot of people on Reddit were like, well, it would have been nice to know if this mystery person actually existed, cuz
Hmm.
who knows? They might have been the root cause. But again,
That's true.
yeah, we don't know. It could
Yeah.
have been fake, it could have been real. Maybe there was a guy, he had terminal cancer and passed before any of this began. We don't know.
Yeah.
So
So
moving
like,
on. Oh, sorry.
at
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say like at this point, I'm kind of like with the family. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing really, to suspect. But yeah,
Okay, that's
continue.
totally fair. So moving on, 3 years later, in 1965, Cindy once again wrote to her family about a man she was dating. But this time, this man was real. His name was Roy McPeace, a South African psychiatrist, and I'll be calling him Roy from here on. So, Roy was 18 years older than Cindy, and Roy just had left his wife around the time his relationship with Cindy started.
Uh
Cindy
oh.
also mentioned in her letters that the two would be getting married that December.
Uh oh.
So, compared to the last guy, Cindy had more details to give regarding info about Roy. But
Hmm.
her family still was quite concerned about this relationship. For one, the age gap. And two, they believed that, quote, Roy was taking advantage of Cindy's gullibility, end of quote. And sometime after getting married, so they did get married, Cindy wrote to her family accusing Roy of spousal abuse and that they were emotionally distant. I'm not entirely sure how the abuse and emotional distance started, but a few of my sources suggested that the abuse escalated when Roy's application to work as a psychiatrist at the Vancouver General Hospital was rejected. But Cindy, however, got a job as a pediatric nurse at the same hospital after graduating from nursing school in 1966. So, like, a little bit of a jealousy angle there is what people think why there was the abuse and emotional distance.
Okay.
So, Roy actually did end up getting a job as assistant professor at the Faculty of Medicine at the University of British Columbia,
Hmm.
but I guess that wasn't good enough for him. And police, when they were investigating Cindy's case later, they found out, and Roy did admit to striking Cindy on two separate incidences while they were together. There's that. As time passed, the relationship between Cindy and Roy really started to crumble, and by May 1982, the two separated. Sources
Okay.
stated that the separation was peaceful, with no fights or disagreements. This peaceful separation was also reflected through Sydney, who was a lot happier in life now that she had her own place, and then she had a great job and everything was great. And yeah, like if you've listened to any other true crime podcasts like Dateline or any documentaries, you know when things get great, It means things are about to go downhill. So
What?
before it goes down,
Maybe they're
they're
just great,
doing
you know?
great. Well,
Oh, good. Sorry, I might have missed it, I think. The separation was when again?
sorry, I just lost my page. Oh, 1982.
1982. Okay.
So
Oh, just before the stalking. I see.
just before the stalking, months before the stalking.
Okay.
Do you have any commentary on Roy or questions?
Mm, no, not particularly.
Okay.
Um, yeah, like obviously, you know, what he did is shitty,
Hmm.
and that's really as far as I've gotten right now.
Okay. Yeah, no
Yeah.
worries. So, for Cindy's life, it was great for like 5 to 6 months ish because that
Hmm.
October 7th to be exact, Cindy got a phone call. When she picked up, all she could hear was heavy breathing on the other end, and then they hung up, whoever called. The
Okay.
caller continued to make these weird calls, and often there was no voices on the other end, just breathing. And sometimes the caller spoke in a very hushed voice, saying things that were extremely sexual and violent. And as I said, this would continue on for this next 7 years.
Okay. So right now we're thinking that's Roy.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Well, because like the whole like they separated peacefully is
Hmm.
like a huge alleged on that one, as far as I'm
Alleged.
concerned. Allegedly peacefully, air quotations.
And I do want to mention that Sydney had mentioned to some of her friends that
Hmm.
when the calls started to come, um, she told her friends that she had a stalker. So,
Okay.
and I will call this person, whoever they are, who's calling as the stalker. All right. So at the beginning, when the call seemed to be just hang up calls or just breathing, Cindy kind of ignored it, thinking it was just weird pranks. But when things start to pick up, such as like the violent conversations or whatnot, she
Yeah.
contacted the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They sent an officer to check things out. And once they checked the house out and everything, the officer recommended some things. One of them was that she keep a log sheet of when the calls are coming and any details about the conversation or what the caller said. Was the other thing that was suggested by the police was to get her phone number unlisted. Do you know what that is?
Yeah. Remove it from the phone book.
Yeah, so Cindy could call her landline provider and they would just give her a new number or just remove her number from the books, the yellow page. So Cindy was happy with these answers and in some way felt a little bit better about the situation. And then the officer also said, like, if they call you back or if you receive something weird, calls and that, just call the RCMP once again. And guess what happened after the officer left?
Depends. Is this 1989?
1982.
Okay, this is in 1982. Okay. All
Guess
right.
what happens?
I'm like, wait, depending on what it is. But okay, if it's
There's a lot to go.
1982, she gets more calls. Oh, damn, there's more. All right. So she gets a call right after.
Right after. So
Okay.
the stalker called right after,
Hmm.
and nobody said anything on the other end. Um, and also, if anybody's wondering why she just kept picking up these calls, it's because she never had caller ID during this time. Caller ID wasn't a thing until the 1990s. Um, so Cindy wouldn't have known if the call was the stalker or if it was her coworkers or her friend or family that's trying to get a hold of her. So that's why she kept picking up these calls. So she gets the call, she hangs up, goes to bed, whatever. The very next day, Cindy receives another call from the stalker. And the thing about this call is not only was there a person talking on the other end, they had mentioned stuff from the previous day, such as the RCMP showing up and what was told to her by the officer.
Oh.
So, someone's been watching her. Thoughts?
Mm, okay, first question is why was the call to RCMP and not like to local police?
I'm not quite sure. Maybe she called the police, but the source I was looking at said the RCMP.
Okay. Because, like, that's the equivalent of, like, in the States calling the FBI instead of calling, like, city police or something, right? So that
I,
was
cause
interesting.
Yeah, and I will say, later on it says that she called the police and the police showed up and not the RCMP. And much
Hmm.
later it says the RCMP was contacted. So I'm wondering if the sources that did the initial writing kind of use them interchangeably.
Okay.
Um, but in this case, the police would have made more sense, um, instead of the RCMP. But that wasn't I don't know what who was called, but police would have made
Yeah.
more sense.
Okay. Or if where she lived was, like, outskirts of town, maybe. Uh, Anyways, so what do I think so far? Okay. Either it is a neighbor
Okay.
or no, this was after the after we had operators, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there wouldn't necessarily have been somebody listening in
Mm-hmm.
on that, but you could tap someone's phone line. Okay, maybe I'm overthinking this, but yeah,
All
a neighbor
right.
right now.
So Roy's in there, neighbors in there.
Mm-hmm.
The call situation continued, and perhaps Sydney one day decided that she wouldn't pick up any calls at all. If somebody wanted to speak to her and make plans, they could just come over to her place and chat. But things, of course, escalated at this point. So I'm going to tell you about three separate incidences that happened close to each other where the
Mm-hmm.
stalker started to take things up a notch.
Okay.
First incident, Cindy reported to the police that someone was lurking outside her home, and the very next morning she found her porch lights shattered. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Second incident, Cindy reported a rock being thrown at her living room window. When she went to go check, everything in the house seemed fine. Not quite sure what she did with the rock, but if the
Okay.
windows were shattered or if they got fixed, I don't know. The third incident happened in October. Cindy reported that someone entered Cindy's home, or her home, sorry, and slashed a pillow on her bed. After all
Oh.
the reports, After all the reports from Cindy, the police started paying closer attention to pretty much everything. The small details Cindy was saying, her house, and possibly her movements. Do you have a comment there?
Uh, who owned the house?
It was Cindy.
Well, was it? The reason I asked was because if it was initially Roy's, and based on their separation, like the divorce, she got the house, and
Mm-hmm.
he's feeling kind of vindictive.
Mm-hmm.
That would be like motive for all of this. Oh, I'm gonna spook her at this place that's actually mine. Air quotations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I I don't know if any of the research stated like their agreement, but I think this is
Yeah.
her own place because she wanted to have her own place. She enjoyed certain things that she was not getting from Roy, or Roy's place, but like a garden. She likes gardening, but yeah, she wasn't getting that ability. So I think this was her own place. I should also mention she has a dog, and I don't
Okay.
know if this dog is shared between and Cindy, sorry, but at some point we're going to be hearing about a dog, and yeah, I don't know if she got the dog after the divorce or before the divorce or the separation,
Okay.
sorry.
And so she says somebody came into the house, slashed the pillows.
Mhm.
Now that you bring up the angle of there being a dog, I'm like, wait, did the dog not react to the person?
You know what? There's been parts where I'm like, there's a dog in the house, like, what's going on? But
Yeah.
I don't know if like the dog was kept in like a separate area. Like
Okay.
if the house had like a mud room, if the dog was just kept in the mud room or like the backyard, and there's like a small place inside the house where the dog can come in if it's getting too cold. That doesn't have to do with the rest of the house. I'm not sure how her house is set up, to be honest.
Because if it's a family dog, they'd probably just be in the house. The reason I bring it up is because if the dog's not reacting or showing any signs of anxiety, then it's probably someone either very
Someone the dog
familiar with
knows.
dogs. Yeah, exactly. Someone the dog knows.
Again,
Okay.
the dog is like briefly mentioned, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. The dog doesn't get brought up a lot. Only like a few incidences.
Okay.
So, through interviews with Cindy, the police learned about Roy, Cindy's ex-husband, and she talked about her past with him and where things are right now. So, after hearing about all the abuse, the suspect number one for all of this for the police was Roy.
Mm-hmm.
However, Cindy stepped up, telling the police that Roy was not capable of stalking and this type of harassment. It was simply not his character. Raph is shaking his head and giving me
What?
this weird face.
What? That's for yeah, that's my bullshit face. Like I am I am shocked by the sentence I just heard. This is somebody who had abused you during marriage, and you are saying, "Oh, he is incapable of this."
Well, I'm
What?
glad you think that because there's more stuff and I put it in. I wasn't sure what your thoughts would be on it, but I'm glad I
Yeah.
put it in because I'm excited to see your face, that
Oh
bullshit
God.
face, one more time. All right, continuing on. So the next chapter that I wrote in my research is called The Thing About Roy. So this is all about Roy.
Hmm.
All right. So, when I was searching things on Reddit from the mass audience, I ran across an info and it was backed up by articles and book. All right.
Okay.
So, Cindy and Roy have separated, correct?
Yeah.
So, I later found out these two have been staying in touch and they would often meet up, or Roy would come over to Cindy's place for meals. And in a different source, it said that they continued to date after separating, which, which, there's
Okay.
Raph's face again, which in a normal
Yeah.
circumstance, it was like, okay, yeah, like a lot of couples do spend time together after separating because if they have children, they might have to do the child exchange or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
or pet exchange. I don't know. But
Shared
given what
custody.
has, yeah, shared custody, but given what's happened to Sydney in the past and what is happening to Cindy, sorry, oh my gosh, Cindy currently, this didn't
Hmm.
feel normal. Um, and like you just said, the abuse, the separation, and much as I looked into my research, I was pretty sure that Cindy wanted to separate because of that abuse. So this was really weird. And we'll talk more about their relationship through all of the three parts. So get ready.
Okay.
So the next part I am going to tell you, um, I'm just going to continue reading and you can just come in whenever you think is, whenever you have something. Sounds good?
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
As time went on, the phone calls and the strange activities around Sydney's home continued. Sydney, that same month, as what month are we in? October? Decided to get basement tenants. So, two people, and on October 20th, the two tenants, they were home alone. Cindy was at work. They heard weird noises coming from the main floor, like someone was there.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew Cindy wasn't at home, so they're like, what the heck? So they went to go check where the sound was coming from or what it was, but nobody was there. Everything was fine. Everything was in its place. Sorry. When Cindy returned home that night, the two tenants explained everything to Cindy, and Cindy immediately called the police. So again, RCMP police sent Constable Patrick McBride, and I'll call him McBride or Constable McBride from here on. So, Constable McBride came to the house and talked to the tenants, took some statements, and then went to the neighbors to ask if they seen or heard anything.
Mm-hmm.
The neighbors reported seeing a man outside Cindy's home multiple times. Then Constable McBride asked if the man looked anything like Cindy's ex husband Roy, and they said no. Another thing that popped up later in my research, and I don't know if it was now or later during more investigations, but it was Constable McBride who discovered through the course of questioning and interviewing the neighbors that one of the neighbors had also received blank calls and there was no one on the other end. Not sure what was done with
Oh,
that info or if there was further investigations, but I don't have
yeah.
anything else for you.
Okay.
So, anything on that?
There's a there's a really old movie. Um, I'm trying to remember. It's kind of like what Scream is a parody of, and it's where like it's a like sorority house that keeps getting like these calls, right? Um, and then you have the police trying to like go into like an operator like location and trying to check the switchboards and see who's calling, yada yada. And then big reveal, the call is coming from inside the house.
Mm-hmm.
Hence that whole term of, like if you're saying somebody has an issue that they don't realize, hey, the call's coming from inside the house kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so one thing that did cross my mind when you're talking about the basement tenants coming up and then they see nothing, I was like, is this person just living in the house? Like in the attic? They're just coming down and stuff.
Yeah.
But then, neighbors are seeing somebody outside the home. Doesn't look like the husband. So, and then
And
they're also getting calls. But, the calls could be, okay, if they were just like normal calls that had like no violence or sexual anything attached to it, I would
mm-hmm.
attribute it to pranks.
Yeah.
Not like kids. They're
Mm-hmm.
pranking
Mm-hmm.
everybody in the neighborhood, calling and just like being all creepy on the phone.
Yeah.
So,
Even with the breathing, I think if somebody like called and was
mhm.
just like breathing very heavily, I would have been like, okay, this is stupid. This is a prank. But once they start saying things that are just violent or sexual in nature, it's no longer a prank.
Now it's something else. Um,
Take
yeah,
your time.
I don't know what else to add in here.
Okay.
Like, I think it's still Roy, but I think maybe Roy is getting somebody else to harass her.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
too. So, what happened next seemed to be in favor of Cindy and everything going on with this whole stalker situations. Do you have any guess what it could be?
Of sorry, everything that kept happening afterwards.
Yeah. So, we have Constable McBride, who's come to
Yeah.
check out the place. And I'm
Mhm.
telling you, things got, something is in Cindy's favor right now. So, do you have any guess what it could be?
Something's in her favor. Well, she has two people in the house now.
About that, I think they move out at some point. Obviously, not at this point, but this is the first and the last time we'll hear about them. The next time
Oh,
we hear
okay.
about them may be during the inquest, but I don't know yet.
Okay. Oh, also, I just thought of something.
Okay.
Roy might be doing this so that she takes him back, make her feel unsafe, and then come back being like, "Hey, baby, you need me to move back in with you. I can keep you safe," or some BS like that.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know what else is working in her favor other than like the police are kind of taking her seriously right now. So
All
something.
right. Well, Sydney and Constable McBride fall in love.
I sensed that.
You didn't say it.
No, I didn't. So I can't take credit for thinking it, but I was like, "There's no way."
There's no
We'll just,
way. It's just
we'll
the way I
just,
wrote
yeah.
it. But so Cindy and Constable McBride spent quite a time together. So at first it was like interviews and whatnot. And those interviews started to become dates. And then they were officially dating. So, some side facts about Constable McBride. During the time he first met Cindy for the first time, he was in the process of separating from his spouse. And during this time where they were getting serious, Constable McBride was looking for a temporary place to stay. So Cindy offered her home. And this was great for Cindy because it meant that she had someone who can keep an eye on everything.
Okay.
You have something to say?
No, man, I should not be laughing. Oh god, it just this feels like it's like straight out of a sitcom. Yeah, this moment, anyways. Also, I kind of chuckled a little bit at the fact that this is now another dude who's coming out of a relationship, like coming out of a marriage. So I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, this
So,
a bit of a type,
I
maybe.
guess I removed. Well, I guess it has to do with age because if she's in her 30s, late 30s at this point, given the
Oh,
time,
she's late 30s now.
probably.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah, like the people that she would be dating wouldn't be fresh into dating. They would have been either a couple relationships in. So, one
Right,
thing I
makes sense.
did put in the script and took it out is that
Mm-hmm.
so Roy, well, I did say like Roy and Sydney, they were still dating, if you want to say that, or hanging out.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that Roy was also keeping an eye out on Sydney's house. So he was kind of lurking around Sydney's home as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so keep that in mind. And so when Constable McBride moved in, he didn't know that Roy was doing this, but he happened to spot Roy in his car in an alleyway behind Sydney's house.
Okay.
And then obviously Constable McBride was like, "What the heck? You're kind of like a prime suspect. What are you doing?" And so he went to go question him. And Roy explained that he was waiting to catch Cindy's stalker red-handed. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So After listening to all of this, Constable McBride explained that he had recently moved in with Cindy and
Mm-hmm.
probably implying, like, you don't have to do this. This is like really weird for you. And then Roy drove off after that. Like I said, Sydney was still hanging out with Roy, and
Mm-hmm.
she was still, air quotes, hanging out with Roy, even after being in a relationship with Constable McBride. The three would often spend time together at Cindy's place, and they'd have dinner and talk about the case. And then Roy and Constable McBride eventually become good friends.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Maybe a bit more than friends, but okay.
Okay. During the time Constable McBride stayed with Sydney, he only picked up one of those calls where the caller did not say anything on the other end. So, the stalker.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, the police were tapping into all of Sydney's phone calls, but even with their best efforts to trace the call, they weren't able to do so. Um,
Hmm.
they
Okay.
weren't able to pick up where the call was coming from. And the reason for this is because it was because the calls are way too short. So I did a little bit of Googling because I thought you might appreciate the info. I wanted to know how long a call needed to be in order for the police to trace it. So, no specific sources. This is just the information the AI system on Google puts out. So, in the present time, to trace a call, it's seconds or within 60 seconds. The call doesn't have to be very long. But
Mm-hmm.
this was happening in the 1980s, and the calls needed to be at least 10 to 20 minutes long for the police
Wow.
to trace it. So I don't know, like if you've heard older cases or seen movies, you'll often hear police say, keep them talking. And this is the reason why, because they needed the call to be for extended period of time in order to trace it.
Mm-hmm.
Although the Google AI did say that certain areas did have the technology that was a little bit faster, but it was not available. So I guess it was more like a trial period to see if they can pick up and trace calls a little bit quicker than 10 to 20 minutes. Regardless, the calls during this period had to be lengthy and for a more accurate location. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, the stalker wasn't here to play around. He was just calling, or she was just calling and just hanging up. It was very quick, probably like less than 30 seconds. So, back to our story. Although the police were not able to track the location, Constable McBride picked up a few things. While on the call, although there was no voice, he was able to pick up a voice of a woman in the background on what seemed to be a PA system. And not sure how this was concluded, but it was determined later that the call was coming from the Richmond area airport. Sorry, let me try this again. Richmond area airport. And it could be possible that the PA announcement said something about Richmond airport, but I'm not sure.
Hmm.
But it was later 100% confirmed the call was coming from the airport. Which I also thought was interesting because it necessarily didn't mean the stalker was traveling or someone happened to be traveling at that point. I was more interested to know if calling from the airport made it harder to trace due to air or radio signal disruptions or dead zones. And all that kind of stuff, which clearly did not work in this case because Constable McBride picked up quite quickly that it was coming from the airport. But I was wondering if all the other calls were done from the airport as well, and Sydney didn't pick up the background noises, the PA system, or whatever it may be.
Okay. Hmm. So, because this is a landline,
Hmm.
I don't think it being in the airport would necessarily make it harder to triangulate.
Yeah, and that's what the AI Google also said, that it wouldn't
Yeah.
be difficult. The frustrating thing would be that, well, for one, it would take 10 to 20 minutes to trace it to the airport. And the fact
Mhm.
that the airport is so big, and crowded, of course, you wouldn't know where the caller
Which,
was.
yeah, which phone it was I was calling.
Hmm. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But I was more
I,
curious. Sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, no, I was just going to say, I don't think that they were all coming from the airport.
Possibly
I
not,
think
but
that
yeah.
this was just like this person was on the move. Honestly, I would not be surprised if they call from a different location each time. Like maybe they
Most
have
likely,
one
yeah.
main base, but there's
Hmm.
also the those telephone booths. Oh my goodness, I forgot what the word was for them. But like the ones on the street that are very hard to trace, right?
Hmm.
You can just make a call from one of those. So I wouldn't be surprised if whoever this is doing mostly calls like that,
Hmm.
or and then this they just happen to be at the airport. They're like, oh, you know,
Let me
it's
check in with Cindy.
hey, let me check in with Cindy. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, but I was wondering, like, if had she picked up like background noises, could there be potential to solve this case? Which she hasn't. So,
mhm,
well, she never did. Sorry. As time went on, the phone calls just happened to be the least stressful thing. Because in
mhm,
November of that year, Cindy found a very disturbing picture under one of her windshield wipers. The picture
okay,
was of a dead body under a medical sheet. Later, during the same
okay,
day, while doing housework, Constable McBride was doing some stuff and he
mhm.
found that someone had cut the phone line in 5 different places. At this point, I'm not sure if anything was concluded from that, but if there was further investigations, uh, it never came up in my research.
So
I'm
she's still getting calls, but it's been cut in 5 different places.
I kind of had the thought, what if I think like the caller or the stalker resorted to sending her pictures because they weren't able to call her. Then while I was thinking that, it made me think, what if Cindy cut the call landlines because she was sick and tired of receiving the calls?
But she never told this officer McBride
Yeah.
that she did that. Okay.
Hmm. I
Okay,
was
that's fine.
thinking that, which would make sense, and which is probably why they started sending pictures to her. So
Hmm.
kind of
So
connects.
sending photos of bodies under medical sheets.
Hmm.
So like sending pictures from a morgue.
Yeah, and so the YouTube video that I watch, obviously they're using AI generated pictures. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have the actual picture, but it would have to be in a morgue or in a hospital setting.
So we think the stalker might be somebody she works with.
That's that. I actually didn't think about that, but it is possible.
Okay, noted.
So I'm gonna go a little bit out of the timeline, but I wanted to finish uh, things off with Constable McBride because he doesn't get mentioned a lot after this until the
Okay.
inquest. So
Okay.
Cindy and Constable McBride kept dating into the new year, so it would be 1983. It's like November. the last thing I read it was from November. So
Hmm.
they dated few months after into the new year, a few months into the new year, sorry. Constable McBride moves to his own place. So I found out later that Cindy actually broke things off with Constable McBride because she believed that things were going too fast. Now, this next thing is totally my opinion, but I don't think
Yeah.
the breakup with Constable McBride was 100% Cindy's decision because Cindy was still in touch with Roy and spending time with him. So I feel like Roy may had something to do with their breakup. And if in reality that Royce wanted to get Cindy back,
Hmm.
um, this might also play into that.
Honestly, if I was McBride, I would have just cut things off too. Like somebody that's still that connected with their ex,
Yeah.
nah, it's
And yeah, it doesn't feel like they share custody of a child or a pet or anything, so it is a little bit weird.
yeah.
Um, all right, so I'm gonna go back to December of 1982. So this is sometime after she received that first picture.
Okay, but she's still with McBride.
She's still, in terms of
Okay,
things, she's still with McBride, but he's never mentioned in my research
okay,
until the
got it.
inquest. So she's still with McBride in 1982 December. Cindy
Hmm.
received a note. I'm not sure how she received it, but it said Merry Christmas, and attached to it was an image of a body of a dead woman with a wound or injury on her neck. So I said, on a side
Okay,
note, I didn't actually realize this when I wrote the draft, but I think the wound on the neck is a bit of foreshadowing, which you'll learn what that is in a few minutes.
okay.
So sadly for Sydney, Christmas wasn't all merry and jolly. She continued to receive the phone calls and notes, and on several incidences, she did report a man standing outside her house.
Hmm.
So it's 1983. Um, so in the new year, it would be end of January, January 27th to be exact. Two of Cindy's friends, Tom and Agnes, dropped by unexpectedly. They knew Cindy was at home because her car was parked outside the house, but when they knocked, Cindy did not answer.
Okay.
So they started to leave. However, on their way out, Agnes thought she heard um, some sounds coming from the back of the house. And this wasn't like a regular, like a house sounds. I should mention here there's like a detached garage behind the house. So this is where Agnes heard the weird sounds coming from. So Agnes
Hmm.
and Tom went back there to check what the sound was coming from or where it was coming from. And I said in brackets, honestly, these two are great friends, and I think they really come in clutch many times throughout the story. So they go to the garage and they find Sydney crouched down with a nylon stocking tightly tied around her neck, and her hands were tied behind her back. So Thomas and Agnes quickly untie Sydney, and when Sydney caught her breath, she told her two friends what had happened. She said
Hmm.
earlier that evening she came to the garage when someone grabbed her from behind. The person then led her into the garage where another person was waiting. Then the two men had attacked her physically, and one of them wrapped the nylon stocking around her neck while the other attacked her with a knife. After hearing
Hmm.
this story, Tom immediately went inside the house and called 911. And then Cindy was taken to the hospital after that. At the hospital, Sydney was examined and was found to be in a good and safe condition. Sorry. However, the doctors found no knife wounds. The police at this point started to see evidence that perhaps Sydney was being victimized by someone who is violent and obsessed, but because there has been no developments over the last few months, they started to consider a new suspect. Do you want to guess who that new suspect is?
McBride?
No, it's Sydney
Oh.
herself.
Oh. Okay.
However, there were a few problems with this theory. It really didn't align with the incidents that were happening, like Sydney not being at home and at work when her tenants heard the noises in the house, and B, other people such as the tenants, the neighbors had witnessed things that couldn't have been Sydney.
Hmm.
Despite all this, the police needed to cover all their bases, so they advised Sydney to speak to a psychiatrist. But Sydney refused. She believed it would stigmatize her. In the sources that I read, she never explained why this was the case. But at first, I was like, well, it's the 80s. Maybe it was the social stigma that she was worried about. But it hit me later last night that Roy, her husband, her
Yeah.
ex husband, was a psychiatrist and she was abused by him. So there's that.
Yeah. That was where my head went to.
All right, Raf, I'm going to end this episode here. We've covered a lot in this episode, and there's going to be more of the same thing, more new things, but
Hmm.
I think this is a good place to end this episode. We're at like the 1 hour mark anyway.
Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of stupid people involved. Good friends too, but
Yeah, good friends.
cops though, really dumb. Because you even have an officer that's living in the house at the time
Hmm.
that all of this is going on. You're really going to start saying that it was Cindy herself is tying herself up
Yeah, I mean,
just because you don't have like anything else. You're like, oh, I guess it's her then. You know, that's
and
ridiculous.
I think one of the reasons is the belief would be, and I don't have a source for this, this is my opinion. If it was another person in the house,
Hmm.
um, wouldn't there be physical evidence?
Of somebody else moving around in the
Yeah,
house. Yeah.
like the
Well,
saying
that.
that
Mhm.
the saying that a criminal can't be 100%, they'd have to leave. There would be a mistake somewhere, you
Hmm.
know? Like DNA, hair, fingerprints, saliva. And a few times during this part, I guess, it occurred to me that there was someone this part where she's talking to Tom and Agnes about two men already being in her property. Um, in her garage was a little bit weird to me. Like how? Um, like you said, was there someone living at that place, like squatters or something? I don't know, but that part I found a little bit weird. Like there was already people there. I'm not saying this justifies the thinking that it was 100% her doing, but
Hmm.
also I have questions that are, and I'm not finding answers to.
Hmm. Yeah, I need more information. I'm excited for us to get to part two and part three, but right now
I can tell
I'm
you this right now. You're not going to
yeah.
get a lot of new information part two, but in the third part, you might get much more information.
Okay. So is there a chance here
Hmm.
that we have Roy and Officer McBride working together? Is there
It's a
potential
little
for
far
that?
fetched.
Well, okay,
Uh,
hear me out, right? Officer McBride is in the house. Okay.
mhm,
So let's say Roy starts calling her, is trying to scare her into, you know, either taking him back or leaving the place or something like that. Okay.
mhm,
Then she starts calling the cops. And then Roy's
mhm,
like, oh shit, she's calling the cops. So he has a friend who happens to be an officer. The
mhm,
officer shows up and is like, hey, I'm an officer. Let me take all of your statements down and reach out to me, you know? If you have any questions, if anyone's giving you problems, keep reaching out to me. Then she gets really friendly with this guy and she's like, hey, you know what? You could just move in. Then he moves in. When he's there, I know it doesn't specifically say that the calls reduce down to one that he
mhm.
hears.
Yeah,
Um,
it only says that he picked up one of these calls.
yeah, that he picked up one of these calls. So, you know, they have this whole elaborate thing going on, trying to mess with her,
Hmm.
and he's in the house too.
Right.
I, but then that falls apart if you're talking about the attack in the garage. What's the
Yeah.
point of now doing that if you have all of this access to the place? So it's probably not them. But the photos of the dead bodies, and this is 1980s, I'm thinking somebody's getting that stuff from like,
Because
okay,
stock
wait, the
images
covered
weren't a thing.
body. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So you're getting a photo from the morgue.
Hmm.
The photo of the woman, was that a real photo? Or was it somebody like someone had drawn?
I have no idea. I'm assuming it's a real photo.
Because if it's a real photo, then it's probably like a morgue at a police station. That's why I started thinking about McBride. But
Hospitals have morgues too.
hospitals have morgues too. Yeah, that's right. So it's got to be someone, one person or two people that she works with. Maybe two either other nurses or other orderlies there
Okay.
who, somebody who maybe had been trying to like ask her out and she was like, nah, dude, I'm not interested. And then,
That's
you
a
know,
fair. Um, I would say write whatever you think down, and after we go through all the parts, we can like start to eliminate everything.
okay.
But for me, to actually, well, the one thing I will agree with that while becoming friends with the friendship between Roy and Constable McBride, if there was a friendship at all, I think it would
Hmm.
have established after the relationship with Constable McBride and Cindy. How big that relationship or friendship between Constable McBride and Roy was, I'm not sure. Maybe they were in that communication where it's like, hey, if you have any problems, call me. Or Roy would be
Hmm.
like, hey, is there any updates? What happened today? And Constable McBride would tell him the details. That I can see
Oh,
happening.
sorry. I meant to, the friendship I was talking about was like McBride with Cindy specifically. I was
Oh,
like trying to like gain her trust so that
right.
she only goes to him when stuff is going on rather than
Hmm.
him and Roy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that is true, but clearly that didn't happen because she already put Roy at a higher pedestal than Bride.
Hmm.
But
Which
yeah.
begs the question of then, why this, it doesn't make sense to me.
Separation.
Yeah, why the separation? If this
Hmm.
person, if you feel strongly that you need to be separated from this person,
Hmm.
I also don't see why all of a sudden that means y'all are besties. Unless you kind of have to be, or if it was amicable, but it didn't sound like it was amicable. Like,
No.
he was abusing you. So, like,
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways. All right, off to part two then.
Off to part two. Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of information like this, but yeah, it's good stuff. And I'm excited to see if any of your theories, you should write them down.
Oh yeah,
If
I
any
have
of
them
your
recorded. Yeah.
if any of those theories hold up in the second part or if they're falling apart. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, after the inquest, we can talk through it. But I do like the idea of breaking it down to smaller chunks because of this. We can have this
Yeah.
discussion. And hopefully by the end of it, we might find something that nobody else has found. Who knows? All
No,
right.
that's fair.
Thanks everyone for listening and tuning in. Please stay for part two. That'll be next week. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Oh, please tell us your theories if you have any. But yes, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
See you all. Bye bye.